Okay, hey everybody, this is Brett Fogle here with this week's edition of TA for the cryptocurrency markets. And so I just wanted to give you a quick wave here and then let's kind of dive into it. We've got a lot going on this week. As most of you probably aware, had some CPI news coming in better than expected. So crypto's rallied, and in terms of the crypto inflation numbers coming in better than expected, but really it doesn't mean too much. The CPI index doesn't necessarily mean that much. And what I'm kind of waiting for is the news from the PPI, the producer price index. But at any rate, we had a nice little rally, also fueled by, what did we also have? We had the Ethereum merge, Testnet merge clearly has gone through and without any incidents. So let me do this though. I'm going to turn off my camera so we can focus on the news and the charts. And so basically Ethereum up another 14% as the testnet merge goes live. So essentially now it's passed all of the tests and the prior testnet merges. So it is scheduled to go live on the LiveNet here in September. And so the question is this, did we have kind of a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of scenario here going into this? So we're certainly going to look at that in the charts. The other thing I want to mention too, though, is that the CPI numbers, indicated inflation is cooling, but and we had a nice little rally there, mostly in Ether. So we're going to look at the Ethereum dominance chart, which is interesting because Bitcoin's not looking terribly strong. Actually, nothing. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. We'll dive into that and how the market's really looking at this point. So inflation cooling, but the rally in crypto, I found this interesting, this article here that says that it may not last, even though the CPI report came in a little bit lower than expected. But this is hardly even relevant. If this had been 0.2% higher, 0.2% is nothing. That number could have been fudged a little bit, but and all that means is that net over July it went down slightly, but I don't know. I think we could see a push up again here in the next few months to negate that. The point of this though is that I found interesting, and I was skimming through this article all the way down the bottom, is that said that we're back to $1 trillion asset class, but almost 20% of that is in stable coins. So this is just to look at the overall breakdown of the market. So it's good news, we're over $1 trillion in holding, but a lot of that's in stable coins, and it's way higher than the last time we were at $1 trillion asset class a few years ago. Last year we hit 3 trillion, sorry. I don't know why this says we were in $1 trillion asset class a few years ago. Well, okay, so the first time it hit $1 trillion, gotcha, it was, stable coins were a very small percentage of this. So basically what it means is there's a very big cash position and not a lot of places to invest that. So, there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors going on with all of this. So with that, let's do this. I want to jump into just kind of take a look at the monthly chart, see if anything looks new. And isn't it interesting, this overlay here, which if you're just seeing this for the first time, I took the overlay of the price action of the prior cycle here. So if I take this blue section here, this is exactly kind of what this did. See that overlay? And then, but overlaid it, with the current cycle and massaged it a bit. But it's interesting how it is following pretty closely. So we are seeing this upswing as of now. So if this follows through on a monthly basis, we had to drop down below the 50-month moving average, but it seems to have recovered here. And if we can continue to head higher, I would say this is August, September, maybe a slow month. I think, all the big Wall Street traders generally come back in September, but there's also some uncertainty with that, the Ethereum LiveNet merge, because that could go wrong potentially, and that would set us up for some trouble there. But this certainly could still play out here, and watch this thing push higher into the end of the year, which would make sense. If this is August, September, October, November, and then kind of pushing up into the end of the year, which is normally what we see going into November, December. So isn't that interesting? All right, so we'll take a look at the RSI. Nothing particularly new and interesting there. Bouncing a bit. This is the monthly RSI. It still did go down into record low territory, but getting a bit of a bounce. I don't know though. It's a weak one. So I am holding out that we still could go back down and retest the recent lows, if not lower, because I mean, look, we're in historic sort of economic bleeding and economic weakness, but you never know. And we are seeing the MACD sort of leveling off here. So let's see what happens. Back in January, where we were up at, in these high regions and the MACD started crossing down below, I was saying definitely we need to get out of this market. And because this run up here was just massive, what we'd want to see is this leveling out a bit. So we're going to likely see a couple months at least of this sort of leveling out before we'd see that turn higher. I don't really use the MACD on a daily basis, but on the longer time frames, it's very telling, like on that monthly. So let's jump over to the weekly time frame here, and I'll just clean this up a bit. So, Bitcoin still in a downward channel, no surprise there. It's back above the 200-week moving average, which is significant. And so when we broke that, then I was saying I think we could go down to the 300-week in the 17,000 region, and even the 400-week down to 12.5. And you know what? We still could. We still could do that, but we're getting a bit of a relief rally here in this zone, and the bull market support band up here, which many people follow, has up here around 28,000. So there's some nice overhead resistance. Not a lot of clues there on the weekly just yet, except that I will call attention to this trend strength indicator that we have developed, and it's just great. Now, when it turns up above that 20 line, usually see some follow through, but I'd want to see what happens here at this downward sort of resistance trend line on that oscillator. So it's not very easy to read this actually at the moment. Let's take a look at this here, which is, I believe, our RSI as well. And I think we could push higher on this, and then we're in this downward sort of wedge here almost. Or triangle. It's not really symmetrical, but there's resistance all the way up here, back in 21, here, there, sort of, and here. So I think we more than likely will see another rollover, folks. This is what I'm seeing. It's unlikely that when a bottom just bounces and breaks through, but it's possible. It's possible because we had the right news, and if Ethereum, the merge goes well and everyone's happy and some other things happen and everyone has a big kumbaya hug, then it's possible. But I don't know. My spidey sense is that we're going to have another rollover here, and we're going to head down and test the lows again one more time. This is the bubble of all bubbles, and doing a lot of research here this week, watching videos and things, and Michael Burry, who of the Big Short, has just gone all in on shorting again, saying this is going to be worse than everyone thinks, and he's been right. He's been right often and famously. So we'll see what happens. Let's take a quick look here at the 5-day. This is something that sort of new here on the Gaussian channel, and this is something that this has had some relevance. But what I want to call attention to is, again, this chart overlay pattern here would indicate on a prior cycle, and I grabbed this from back in here when it was below the Gaussian channel, and if you're not familiar with this, you can look it up online. But typically when it breaks down below the red, it takes some time here to really get back up above, and as long as it's below that middle line, it is resistance. It's got to break up above it, but even then it can get pulled back in. This was the COVID crash. So this overlay, this blue, is just for speculation here, but that was this kind of pattern. So what it suggests is potentially, right, that we push higher and we retest the highs. Isn't it interesting how it overlays exactly with the prior highs? So not often we see a triple top, but it certainly could see that kind of going in again into the end of December, hitting a new high, retesting that 67 level and rejecting, and everybody's just panicking, saying, oh my God, it's over, it's third time, it's not going to go. And then boom, we have another kind of push back lower here, but then we rally off into new highs. So I'm not saying this will happen. This is sort of interesting to lay out these patterns as they've played out before. And anyway, let me just take off some of these indicators, however, though, the drawings, because the Gaussian channel, it's really, is it above it or below it? And certainly we've got some work to do. And if it's, it's not often here, let me just call attention to this. It's not often that it just races right back up through this. This was the COVID crash. It was a bit of a black swan event. So it recovered fairly quickly, but it got pulled back down in again, right? And there's reasons for that. Obviously, the economy, COVID, this is warranted and why that's all happened. And actually, I apologize. This was the bear market of 2018. I misspoke here. I'm on a 5-day chart, so it accelerates it a bit. And what I was trying to suggest though is, okay, so we had this pushback higher out of the 2018 bear market and then got kind of pulled back in here, which should have been foretelling a bit, right? Because we didn't know about COVID, then started to hear about COVID right in here as it was kind of digging its way out of the Gaussian channel, and then bam, came back in, and it just gets sort of stuck in here for a while. So certainly you can look at that in cycles past. It's just again below the Gaussian channel. It tends to be down there for some time and then takes a while to get back up. But all the good news is when it gets back above the Gaussian channel and sort of retests it, it can ride this thing for a long time. And we saw that there, we saw that here. So it's something worth paying attention to. All right, let's see. I want to jump down to the daily now, and let's take a look at our daily chart of the Bitcoin. And so what I'm drawing here, there's a couple things we're going to look at. So at the very simplistic level, we had this downward trend channel from back here, became a resistance here, and we see this downward trend line rejected right in this range, right? So the fact that we came down here it's been on a rising creating a symmetrical wedge here, higher lows rising up in here, but with yesterday's candle, or with see, this is with the time this recording is going out 2 days ago, sorry, Wednesday, it was looking bullish. It was breaking up above this trend line resistance, but sure enough, it then pulled back later in the day. So this is a indecision. This is a doji here, which indicates reversal. And so far today, it's just not much is happening. So that would indicate to me, low volume. This is the summertime. The big traders or Wall Street traders are out in their Hamptons mansions and not wanting to come back to work just yet. Point of this is that this is likely going to just sort of drift around a bit, but and soon enough I would say more than likely, I believe we'll roll back over and may still come back down and retest and maybe get down to the 300-week moving average. To negate that, we really need to see a break and close above 25,000. That's the midpoint of this kind of vector candle right there, and above this downward trend channel line. So let me give you another example of what this could play out and look like here. So I've got a couple different charts of Bitcoin, all saying similar things. And so here's what I've done. I've drawn these green and red boxes. So we have two things here. We've got a cup and a handle pattern here on Bitcoin. So that's interesting. So here's the handle. The other reason that we would need to see a break above this 25,000 level, that would be a technical break out of the handle. And generally that does see some follow through. I would imagine we'd see a quick push up to 32,000, and then we'd hit some resistance based on this trend line here. And come back down maybe midway 28,000 to retest. If it is strong enough to continue higher and can break and close above 33,000, then it's a quick run up to 43,000. So if that happens and there's a catalyst, we could see a very fast rise, a lot of money come back in, but at each level here, there's some profit taking happening. Okay, a lot of overhead supply over here, basically people who bought in these areas that are looking to get even, and they're freaked out and they want to basically sell up into whenever their money is close to where they got into it. So that's called overhead supply. Now the other side of this though, and what we're starting to see is some weakness, and so I'll just move this over a bit as this other scenario. But if we don't over the weekend break up above here with some nice volume to confirm that, again, slow market, so the Wall Street big money is on vacation, out of town, etc. So if we start to drift down here, and we can certainly see this break pretty quickly down through this, back down through this upper trend line, and come back down lower in as we're showing here in this red zone. So green zone is good, a close and hold above 24,500, you know, above there to 25,000. Green is good, should push higher. If we keep kind of going sideways or putting in lower highs in this red box, then like we're heading back down lower here. We're going to at least retest the $20,000 area, more than likely, and maybe through it, bounce and head lower. I'm still leaving that open. Where would be a good place to buy Bitcoin and other cryptos? Right down here around the 15,000 range to 12,500 to 14,000. We'll see how it looks. Could certainly get a big capitulation move down, which would be great to just flush out and reset this market. That would be this green zone here, which is around 12,500. That's the 400-week moving average. Previously, I had that drawn on here, and for some reason, it's just not showing up. But that would be the 400-week moving average would be right down in this 12,000 range. So let's see. So basically, great buying opportunity if we do get down in those levels. Not seeing a whole lot here on our other indicators that other than it's a bit overbought here. So unlikely it pushes much higher with any strength. Again, this volumes, it's kind of picking up, but it has been strengthening. So we have to say over since back in earlier this year, obviously. But all right, let's take a look. The big news, we'll get to Ethereum here in a moment. Actually, why don't we just jump ahead, because Ethereum is in big news and a big driver here. Now, Ethereum has been breaking up out of this downward trending channel. So, at this point, it would be useful to kind of draw one of these and have that on the chart. But, the big question is, and I had drawn this last week, would we break down below this and then maybe head lower? But this is really being driven again by the Ethereum merge, the Contrarian test. What's interesting is, and I'm going to jump over to the USDT dominance, because what we're seeing is the fact that this is breaking down. So I was wrong on this. This is breaking down below this trend line. Well, it's not really right or wrong. It is watching and learning. So I said, well, this will probably bounce off of this and head higher as crypto goes lower. But here's what's interesting. Pay attention, because we have not only USDT dominance going lower, but Bitcoin dominance going lower. Well, where's all the money going, right? So if money's coming out of Bitcoin, coming out of crypto, and coming out of USDT stable coins, where is it going? Going into Ether. Here's ETH dominance. Look at that, interesting, right? So, and now this I do believe we'll see more money flowing into ETH. It's breaking up above this trend line resistance here on the ETH dominance. So we could see like a pretty nice push higher and rally in ETH. And this is people positioning ahead of the mainnet going live. There are some issues with the ETH merge. The miners are complaining that they're going to lose all their revenue if it goes to proof of stake. So there's some people talking about doing a hard fork on Ethereum, creating another version. I mean, there's already Ethereum Classic, and so the hard forks typically don't really pan out. But this would kind of put us, if we see this push up here slowly and into this range, and maybe this would be a likely resistance area, and would be around when the merge is slated for, around September 19th. It would just, it's useful to play these narratives out ahead of time. So, let's say we keep seeing money, all from crypto, come from everywhere else, get into ETH, because everyone's gonna be like, all right, it's the big merge is happening, and now we're in, see, that's August. Well, we're still in the end of August. So what I was suggesting is, as you get into September, that could be a sell the news kind of environment. So we'll see what happens. The reason but this is a recent local top here, and we would expect some kind of pullback. So the more likely scenario would be something like this, pull back, and then this into September. I went too far. See September here, right? Would be, yeah. So something like this, and then maybe like that, because the sell the news. I don't know, pure speculation. We don't know. Just want to put that on the radar. All right, let me take all these off. But the big news is this thing breaking into a new high area. So it definitely has some upside in Ethereum. We'll see what happens. I would wait for the weekend, kind of see, it's again this low volume from, well, not necessarily low volume, but who's buying it is the question. Wall Street typically is not really doing much right now. All right, so I'll take this off. So that covers that. Let's look at the DXY real quick. DXY is it's very interesting. So putting these overlays on these charts is fascinating sometimes, because this is a prior cycle of the DXY and this blue line chart pattern. I'll show you how I drew that here. I just have to maybe go back far enough, because, and which one was it here? Bounce and bounce, and then up high. It's been a little while. It may have been this one. Yeah, no, it was way back here. I had to go back even farther. And I think that was even on a weekly basis here. Let me just double check. Yeah, so basically this drawing in blue is coming from back here. I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Back in the back in the 1980s. Is this right? There to there. It's either that one. Yeah. So basically this. So there's a pattern here that could be playing out. I'm not sure if I got the right one, but it's look. Is that the one? I think so. Do you see? If it's not, I mean, you see how close it is. Yeah, so that's, I mean, these things tend to have similar patterns. So anyway, does it mean it goes that high again? I don't think so. I think there's going to be the DXY will come up maybe in this range. We're trying to prop up the dollar, and then it rolls over. But it's possible. And if we do get up in these ranges on the dollar, then that's trouble. That's trouble, because what happened back in here, they propped up the dollar and then it fell really hard. Be great for crypto though, right? So, but currently what we see happening here is, and I'll go back to the maybe a 2-day, so it's a little bit less condensed. But look at that, it's following that same overlay. I had drawn this when it was back in here, so it did push right up to there, and now it's pulling back. So it would be interesting to see that DXY pulls back, we get a little rally in crypto, and then as the DXY pushes higher again, crypto falls back lower considerably. Everyone understand, because that's an inverse relationship there with the DXY and Bitcoin. All right, so we've looked at all of this here. The VIX is up over 20 and down, back down to 20. Don't really follow the VIX. That's more of a stock market indicator. And so let's see on the total market cap, as we were talking about, above $1 trillion, but a lot of this is in stable coin. What I am watching for though is an inverse head and shoulders or a breakdown on the total market cap, because this here, if this were to push up higher, see, this is the left shoulder, this is the head, and then if we push higher here and go sideways, well, then that can be an inverse head and shoulders, meaning we have to push higher and have a nice little bull rally, bull trap rally potentially. Or do we see this kind of thing roll over and head lower? This is what we have to be kind of aware of. All right, so with that in mind, nothing's really looking that strong here in the short term, although we can look through some of these. I've got some old ones that I was watching. We have, off of the bottoms, if they were the bottoms. Well, here's RUNE. RUNE is actually interesting. It's having a bit of this is that inverse head and shoulder. So what we want to watch here on RUNE is, I can take this off because that's already broken above. So this here is the break above the neckline. Actually, well, technically that isn't the neckline. The neckline is going to be more like this. So if we get a break above that and we get a market rally, I mean, RUNE could have a nice little push up here up to the $6 level. All right, I mean, that to me makes sense. And RUNE's a good project, so nice little, that's 100% gain, guys. So I'm not here to make recommendations. This is educational purposes only, but I will set an alert here just as that neckline breaks up on RUNE, because hey, wouldn't it be nice to have an early Christmas and alert? I already had another alert drawn here at $3.50, and again, it breaks above those. I would expect to see some follow through up into these other levels on. So RUNE actually looked pretty good on that. We've got XTZ Tezos breaking above this downward trend line channel. So we have had some really nice moves off the bottom. It's just easy to see in retrospect and in rear view, almost 200% on Matic. But are we not due for some kind of a pullback here? I would I would suggest we are, and we can just see this by even drawing some simple trend lines. The best time, to buy something like this though is, it's kind of coming back and retesting and before it goes higher, because what we have here as well is sort of this a wedge pattern, so this is going to break one way or another. So I'm going to put in an alert at $1, see if we go higher on that. It's more a de-risked type of trade, especially with a tight stop loss. So we'll see what happens there. Let's see, E-Gold, Elrond, certainly some of these are looking interesting. You can see I've got some diagrams drawn on these, and cup and handle breakout here on BAT. Helium is not doing so good. It's in a downward trend channel. I have some alerts set up for when it breaks back out above that. But just kind of skimming through the favorites, and it's just a note to myself, but I have some alerts here when to maybe look at this again. And so this is just some of the things that I'm following along with here. And let's see, AVAX, we can look at Sol. Kind of hard to say. I think what I'd really like to see is some kind of a pullback and then bounce off of support. So I have my moving averages turned off, but I do like to watch the 21 and 50-day moving averages. So that's a pretty good place to kind of sign off here, but I do want to just, many of these do have the 21-day crossing up above the 50-day, and that's a really good indicator for, especially in a trending market. But we can also see fake outs like we saw back here, and everyone piles back in the markets, and then what happens, it kind of rolls back over and fails. And so we want to be breaking above resistance lines while also above the 21 to 50-day moving average. That's a simple way to look at it. If we wanted to get fancy schmancy and pull up an Ichimoku, we're in the cloud. We've got a lot of spaghetti going on here on the charts, but we did have the Tinkin and the Cregan cross back in here, and sure enough, it had some nice follow through. So but the problem is the cloud is a, for called a cloud for obvious reasons. It can be sort of a stormy weather that's not an easy shoot up. So this is, if it's going to break back above this cloud, we'll see this kind of movement, but that'll give us other chances to get back in. And let me hide that for a minute, because that's ideally what we're looking for, is just bouncing off of a support line, as we work our way higher. So pushing up, profit taking, and then buying back at support on the moving averages, and in these trend channels that can be pretty simple to draw. But yeah, though I am seeing some encouraging crossovers here. We just have to give it a little more time, because we saw it back in here. We had a week above the 20, the 21 above the 50, but then she broke down again. And so I would even suggest that we want to be extra cautious, because look at that. If we draw it this way, maybe this wasn't the trend channel at all. It should be more like this one, and take this out of the way. And so it was really more like this potentially in the end, right? So this is the resistance we're at now. So even though the 21's crossing above the 50 on here, it's going to hit some pretty serious resistance in this area. So a rollover is still very, I'd say it's 50-50. So that's all I have for you today, guys. And so, again, this is Brett, and we're doing these weekly TA on the overall market. What I'd be watching for into the weekend is just see what Bitcoin is looking like. Let's see if I can get a cleaner chart. And this is if we can get up to this kind of a pattern here, then I think we've got some really good strength to go up to 50,000 if we put in an inverse head and shoulders. But see, on Bitcoin, that 21-day really hasn't crossed up above, and we had that fail back in here. So there's quite a bit of overhead kind of resistance with that. So we'll keep an eye out and keep you posted. So thanks everybody. Have a great weekend, and be sure to like and subscribe the video down below. If you have any questions or comments, please do put those down in the chat. So anyway, thanks everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll definitely talk to you next week. Bye-bye.